In this lesson, we'll be discussing the prerequisites to creating your Amazon seller account. It's important to note that this lesson is primarily meant for those who do not live in the US and are looking to sell on the US Amazon marketplace, which is Amazon.com. So there are essentially two scenarios. The first is that you live in one of the countries currently accepted to register for selling on Amazon.com. And of course, the second one is that you do not live in one of those countries currently accepted to register for selling on Amazon.com. Now, if you're in the second scenario, that does not mean you cannot sell on Amazon in the US. We're going to go through that in this lesson. So these are the two scenarios. The criteria are basically this link. If you go to this link, which is under this lesson, under this video, you'll see a list of about 102 countries that are currently accepted to register for selling on Amazon. So pause this video, click the link below, and check if the country in which you live is currently accepted to register for selling on Amazon. If your country in which you live is accepted, is on the list to sell on Amazon.com, then there are still two scenarios. So now, as I mentioned, there were two initial scenarios, and now this first one has another two scenarios. They're like sub-scenarios. The first is that you have a US checking account or bank account located in the UK or any country in the Eurozone. So you can see the entire list here. Australia, New Zealand, India, Hong Kong, or Canada. Okay, so that's the first sub-scenario if your country was on that list of 102 countries supported by Amazon. Next is, of course, you do not have a US checking account or bank account located in the UK or any country in the Eurozone, Australia, New Zealand, India, Hong Kong, or Canada. Okay, so see which scenario you're in. Do you have a US checking account or a bank account in one of these countries, or do you not? Okay, so if you're in the first scenario, if you do have a bank account in the US or the UK, Eurozone, or one of those countries that was listed on the previous slide, then what you need to start selling on Amazon.com in the US Amazon marketplace is number one, a US or internationally chargeable credit card. Number two, a local bank in your country that supports ACH, which stands for Automated Clearinghouse, which basically means that your bank can accept electronic transfers. Number three, a phone number, okay? And number four is your local address. So this is the most simple scenario that we'll discuss in this video, is basically if your country was on that list of 102 countries that is supported to register on Amazon.com, and if you have a bank account already in one of those countries, that was on the next slide after that, the first sub scenario. If your bank account is in the UK or in the US or in one of those other countries in the Eurozone or one of those other handful of countries, then all you need to do is basically link whatever things you have, such as your credit card, your bank account, your phone number, and your address. You can use those things to set up your Amazon account immediately. There are no additional steps required for you. On the other hand, in the second sub-scenario, right, so you're still in an accepted country, but you just don't have a bank account in the US or UK or in one of those other countries in the Eurozone or those handful of countries. So in that case, there's only one difference for you, and that is that you still need a US or internationally chargeable credit card, you still need a phone number, you still need a local address, your local address, but you will need to open up a US bank account, and we're going to discuss how to do that in this video. Okay, so again, if you're on that list of 102 countries that can register for Amazon.com and selling on that marketplace, but you do not have a bank account in the US or the UK or the Eurozone or those other handful of countries, then you will need to create a US bank account to be able to start selling on Amazon. Okay, and we're going to discuss how to do that in this lesson. What if you do not live in an accepted country? So out of those 102 countries, your country is not on the list. I know some people, let's say in Pakistan or Nigeria, those are a couple of examples of people, maybe you're in one of those countries who's not on that list. So what do? For you, the first requirement is to have a US or internationally chargeable credit card, and we'll talk about how you can get that in this lesson. Number two, a US bank account. Of course, we'll also cover that in this lesson. Number three, a US or international phone number. And number four, a US address. And we'll actually go through how to acquire every one of these pieces for you so that you can sell on Amazon even if you're not on one of those accepted countries. And many people are doing this, so don't worry. Just continue watching this lesson, and hopefully by the end of this lesson you will understand how it all works, and many questions and concerns that you have will be clarified. So the first requirement for you, if you're not on the accepted list of countries, is you need to first open up an international credit card, and second, a US bank account. And both of those things can be done by using a platform or site known as Payoneer.com. This is the first of two options that I'm going to be telling you about. So Payoneer, one of the Payoneer reps actually said this: we provide you with a US collection account which you can use to receive US bank transfers from US companies such as Amazon. The Payoneer account has a Payoneer prepaid debit MasterCard which you can use to make purchases online, in stores, and at ATMs worldwide. You can also withdraw your funds to your local bank account. Okay? And now Payoneer supports over 200 countries, so which means that your country should definitely be able to use Payoneer wherever you're living. You're going to get a US prepaid MasterCard, right? You're also going to get a Bank of America account with a routing number and account number, which you need when you set up your Amazon seller account, because this is what Amazon will use. This is the bank account information that Amazon will use to transfer your payments or your profit every 2 weeks. So Amazon has a count of how much money they will pay you, and they do this every 2 weeks, and they need a bank account in which they can transfer those funds that they owe you. So that's why you need a bank account. And then you also need a credit card, which will basically be Amazon's method of charging you for certain things. Let's say you're using Amazon ads and whatnot. They have to have some card on file that can be charged internationally, as we mentioned as one of the requirements. So Payoneer will help you do both of these things in one. Some more information about Payoneer. Payoneer allows you to receive ACH transfers, right, which means direct transfers, from US companies, and SEPA transfers from European companies directly to your Payoneer account. Payoneer fees are 1% of each payment received using this service, 1% of each payment made using the Payoneer debit MasterCard, okay, 2.75% foreign currency exchange rate to transfers or withdraw funds to your local currency, and an annual fee of just $29.95. So there are a few additional fees that you'll incur to use this service, but this is kind of a necessity if you're not on that initial list of 102 countries. You're going to have to do this so that you can open up a US bank account as well as get an international credit card that can be charged. But these fees are relatively minimal. They're not too bad, a few percentages here or there. But again, as I said, Payoneer or something like this, the second option that we're about to present, can be used as well. It's a necessity if you want to sell on Amazon. So you need to consider that as part of your expenses and as part of your, even profit margin when you're calculating it. More about Payoneer. The process of registering a Payoneer account is pretty simple. All you need to do is sign up online and upload documentary proof of your ID and address. Then you'll wait a couple of weeks to receive your Payoneer MasterCard, which you will need to activate the account using the card number, and then you can basically go into Amazon and fill in the Payoneer bank account details, okay, which will allow you to start selling on Amazon when this entire process is complete. Finally, about Payoneer, this was provided at this link, in the source link that you see at the bottom of this screen. Basically, this person, was, I'm going to include the link to this article as well under this video, and you'll see it later on the slide in this presentation. He basically compares Payoneer versus the second option we'll present. And he says, my strategy for using Payoneer is to use it for funds that I want to reinvest into inventory purchases for selling on Amazon US. This is because Payoneer is transacted in USD, so if I receive Amazon US payouts, right, which we said are every 2 weeks, and use that to pay for inventory purchases in USD, I avoid two foreign currency transactions. So with Payoneer, I would lose 2% in fees, 1% to receive, and then 1% on expenses. If I transferred back to my local currency and then purchased inventory in USD with my local Singaporean credit card, total fees would be at least 4% or more due to the double currency conversion. So that's why he likes to use Payoneer for reinvestment of capital. Basically, he keeps those funds in that account that he knows he'll need for reinvestment. So if he's starting to run out of inventory and he wants to buy more inventory, he doesn't have to do double conversion. So he's not transferring those funds into his bank account. He's keeping a lot of them in that, account because he knows he'll need them for reinvestment or for more inventory. But whenever he needs, the money in his own bank account to use for himself personally, he can transfer as well. But he doesn't do it all at once because, again, you're gonna be incurring those double kind of transaction fees or currency conversion fees. Finally, paying your pros and cons. Number one, there's a quick and simple setup. Number two, ability to receive funds from many sources and transfer to your foreign bank account. Of course, that's a huge pro. And finally, the ability to minimize foreign currency transaction fees if you're receiving funds in the US and using the Payoneer debit card to fund purchases. Okay, and one con is that Payoneer is somewhat of an inefficient system that it doesn't separate functions. So once one goes down, everything goes down. So the link that I'm going to provide you with, actually the story that he tells where he compares Payoneer and the second service that I'll tell you about, he says that his Payoneer debit card actually got deactivated for whatever reason, and he had, his funds were kind of stuck with Amazon because the credit card, the new one, was going to take another 2 to 3 weeks to come in and to be activated. And so again, hopefully that's not a very common situation. It's unlikely that that will happen to you, but just remember that that could happen, and if it does, then you're kind of in that situation where you may not have a card for a couple of weeks and you may be stuck with those funds. So let's go now to the second, before we actually do that, so Payoneer currency conversion / cross-border fees. There's a link here. You can also go, click this link under the video, and it just tells you a little bit more about their conversion, currency conversion / cross-border fees. Finally, the second option for creating an international credit card / US bank account. Now, it's called WorldFirst. Okay, so worldfirst.com. Reasons for opening a WorldFirst account. First of all, it has a lower foreign exchange cost or rate versus Payoneer. Okay, so it's 2 to 2.5%, whereas Payoneer, there are two kind of fees. You're paying 1% plus 2.75%, so you're looking at a total of about 3.75% with Payoneer. If you start selling on Amazon.co.uk and want a more efficient way to transfer payouts to your country, this is something that you won't worry about necessarily right now, especially if you're just starting out. But in the future, if you do expand to Amazon.co.uk, WorldFirst will make it more convenient and more efficient for you to do that. And then have multiple options so you have alternatives in case something goes wrong. So this is just that sort of principle, don't put all your eggs in one basket. So at the end of this article, he actually says that it's actually preferable to use both. Now, I know that setting up both WorldFirst and Payoneer is going to take time. It may not be the most efficient thing to do. I would probably say start with Payoneer because it's more simple. It's more, I think, widely used, especially if you're in a country not supported by Amazon and you just want to sell in the U.S. marketplace. I think it's very simple. To go about and create that process. The other huge benefit of Payoneer is that you get a credit card that can be charged internationally, whereas with WorldFirst you don't get that. So WorldFirst, the main thing to note is that it specializes specifically in low-cost foreign currency transactions. It only makes money through currency conversion when you withdraw funds into your local bank account. So WorldFirst will actually not charge you anything unless you are withdrawing funds into your local bank account from the WorldFirst account that you'll get, that bank account. This has a number of useful applications for sellers like you who are not based in either the US or the UK. It may also be useful for a US based seller who sells in the UK or vice versa. Unlike Payoneer, there's no debit card facility. Okay, so you're not going to get that card that you can use, which has its pros and cons. It means that there's only one function, which is again receiving funds in the US or UK. In our case, we'd probably go with the US and convert them and transfer them into your local bank account. This keeps it simple and minimizes potential complications that may happen with a Payoneer account. So because there's no card involved, there are fewer complications, but again, you need a card. So if you're going to go with WorldFirst, you need to have an internationally chargeable credit card. So hopefully you have that already, or you can do that with your local bank. So that you can use WorldFirst, which gives you the currency conversion and bank account capabilities, and then you use another method to get that credit or debit card that you need as well for your Amazon account. WorldFirst is the lower cost way to receive your USD and European payouts in your local bank account. So the costs are lower, the percentages, the currency conversion rates are lower, so that's another benefit. So again, just to sum it up, mainly Payoneer provides you with both the debit card or the credit card that you need, as well as the bank account, but the rates are a little bit higher, and you may have, there is a potential to have some complications with, the credit card, as the person in the link or in the, what I'm going to show you, the link that I'm going to give you, he kind of compares both. He says that that happened to him, so there are potential complications. Whereas with WorldFirst, you only get the bank account. Okay, you don't get the card, so you'll need to find a way to do that separately, with your local bank account or whatever, and the make sure that the credit card is internationally chargeable, or internationally you can use it internationally. Um, and WorldFirst, it has lower cost of currency transactions. So their currency rates or currency conversion fees are lower than that of Payoneer's. So again, these are the two options that you have, right? Getting paid, Payoneer versus WorldFirst. As I said, a lot of the notes or a lot of the points that I made in this part of the presentation comparing Payoneer and WorldFirst were from this article. Very, very comprehensive article. He speaks from his own experiences and kind of gives you a very comprehensive overview and comparison between the two. Again, it's up to you whether you want to use Payoneer or WorldFirst. You can look into this article. I'll also have a few other links below that you can take a look at to help you make your final decision whether you want to go with Payoneer or you want to go with WorldFirst. So the next part is entering your bank account information. Amazon actually has a good article on how you enter your bank account information. Sometimes this may seem like a very simple, self-explanatory step of the process, but sometimes you may not know what a certain field what you're supposed to enter or how you're supposed to enter it. So I'm including this link as well that basically shows you exactly how to enter your bank account information when you're creating your Amazon seller account. Or if you don't enter it when you initially create your account, then you can enter it when you have it ready. That bank account information is ready. The third thing, so the first two criteria or the requirements that we need, as we mentioned, is first a internationally chargeable credit card. Number two was a US bank account. So we talked about how to acquire both of those things using either Payoneer or WorldFirst. Number three is a US phone number. And the very easy solution or way to acquire a US phone number is Skype. Skype allows you to buy a US phone number, and the main reason you need a US phone number is because of the verification process for your account. So Amazon will actually ask you to verify your account by either them sending a text or a phone call with a verification code that you need to enter as part of that process. So you'll need that phone number, and you'll also need a phone number that's on your account at all times. So that's the third requirement. Number four is a US address, and you can get this US address by going to a site called myus.com. So again, you'll need this to set up your Amazon seller account because you're not one of those countries where your address, you can't even select your country when you're creating that Amazon seller account. So you need to have a US address that you can enter, and you can easily get this. There are many services out there that do this, but the most reliable and reputable and credible one is myus.com. So go ahead and visit that site. You'll find all the details there. It's a very simple process to create a US address that you can use when you're creating your Amazon Seller Central account for selling in the US. So let's recap. There are basically three total scenarios that we've gone through in this lesson. The first is if you live in one of the countries currently accepted to register for selling on Amazon.com. That in and of itself has two sub-scenarios. So there are two scenarios so far that you see. One is if you have a US checking account or bank account located in the UK or in the Eurozone or in one of these other countries you see in point A, right? So if you're on the list of accepted countries and you meet the second criteria that you have the account, then that's the first scenario. The second scenario is you're on the list but you don't have an account. And then the final and third scenario is that you do not live in one of the countries that's accepted for registering for selling on Amazon.com, and we talked about the steps that you need to take to acquire the requirements that you need to actually set up your account for this final and third scenario. Okay, so hopefully this lesson provided that sort of comprehensive overview and gave you all the information that you need. Of course, make sure that you know exactly which of these three scenarios you belong to, and based on that, go ahead and take the steps. And in the next lesson, I'll show you exactly how to quickly set up your Amazon seller account.